Hi again, folks. Al Dampier here from Lure Charge. Today I want to share with you some of the tackle techniques that I've developed over the years from my commercial salmon trolling as well as my sports fishing. Some of them are going to be familiar to some of you folks, but probably not all of them. So with any luck we'll be able to help you to put more fish in the boat. Towards the end of this video I've got a little clip on a knot that I've developed, and it actually tests out to be a little bit stronger in some cases than the Palomar knot, so you knot enthusiasts might want to stick around for that. I'll start with my hooks. What I normally do is take my vice grips or pliers, give that a good twist, put about a 10 or 20 degree offset on that hook, not too far, otherwise you compromise the strength. Then I'll take a file, I'll give it a couple of good strokes in the same direction as that offset, a little less on the outside and just enough up the back side to take the burr off of that. And what you end up with is a very sticky hook, and once that gets into a fish's mouth it's going to act like a bit of a plow right on the tip, and that'll dig in sooner, give you a better hook set, and put more fish in the boat. Another little trick that I use sometimes, and I'll do it on my trout lures as well, where I have shiny hooks. I'll just take a magic marker. You can also use nail polish, would be good for that, and give that hook a little bit of a camo effect. In that way, to a predator fish it might look like more like a spotted tail, and you never know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I can't do that with my hoochies simply because I require this amount of exposed mass for my anode to create the voltage required. It's not as critical on the spoons because the spoons are not clear coated. A lot of spoons are, like your Coyote spoons, they're all clear coated. So if you're using my anodes on other spoons, make sure that you're either using a good quality stainless steel or a nickel plated hook in order to have that voltage balance right, the metals balance. So that's required. I can't do that on my hoochies. No touch-ups on them. What I do on those is I use actually coffee stir sticks. They're a stout little plastic tube. You can buy them at the dollar store. A lifetime supply costs you $1.50. And I extend my my hooks back in my hoochies because most fish will attack from behind, and if you get one that's a nibbler, we want to put that nibbler in the boat. So once I extend that back, if there's too much hanging over of the hoochie tails, I'll take my scissors and I'll trim that off, and I guarantee that will put more fish in the boat. This is a little display of my voltage. What I've got in here is the stainless hook and swivel assembly out of that hoochie. I've got an anode in there. It's sitting about 1/4 of an inch away, and this is an identical hook to this one. So basically what I start with is a zero baseline. Two identical hooks. That's an extension of my alligator clip. So it's a zero baseline. All I'm doing is measuring the interaction between the metals on this and what they do to this hook here, and what I'm reading out here is what a fish sees. So a very, very low value here. Virtually, if I let it sit, it would be 0, even though the anode is sitting right in close. No contact, no voltage. So that's why it's critical to have that not interfere with the anode coming down. So there's my contact there, and that'll jump into the, if I get it held right, into the 0.4 volt range. This is fresh water. If it were salt water, the value would be probably half again as much. And it all depends on mineral content of the water. Brackish water is going to be hold up a higher voltage as well. Freshwater anodes are a little bit different. These ones, for the most part, are just attached to the stainless steel swivels. It's a different alloy than the freshwater ones. I also have the smaller ones for the smaller trout lures, and they will act they can be attached like this, or open eye can also be attached to things like a lake troll or a flasher or whatever. And I've kept my voltages a little higher than required. Originally, when I proved this first to myself, it was on cutthroat trout, and I used that anode on my trout lures, and I made it work. But what I did find over the course of my research was that if the voltage was too low, the fish would not respond as well. If the voltage was higher than I thought it should have been, the fish still responded well to that, and the catch rates were still there. There was no lowering of that. So what I've done was I've kept the voltages a little bit higher than are actually required, so that gives me a bit of a fudge factor. If someone was using this with a brass-bodied swivel, it would still be an adequate voltage. Any brass or copper or different metals that are lower galvanically will lower the voltage, and if you use too much copper, too much brass, any tinned hooks, that will bring the voltage down to a point where you won't see any benefit from using my stuff. But if you do it right, use my voltage concept in the correct manner, it will put fish in your boat. I was out trout fishing a couple of years ago, and I lost about a 3-pound trout beside the boat and my lure, and I felt that I shouldn't have lost that fish. I was using 8-pound fluorocarbon at the time, and it wasn't very old line. I went back to the camper and got out my digital meter and took the line right down to the bottom of the spools where it hadn't seen much daylight, and I did some tests on it, and didn't matter which knot I tied on that, it wouldn't go above about 5 pounds. So it was quite a bit less than what was advertised. So just beware. When you're buying something off the shelf today, it doesn't mean that it's actually that new or will test out to what you expect it to. So just beware, know your line and know your knots. I commercial trolled for years, and mostly a 60 to 100 pound test line. So I was using a very compact penny knot, very quick to do, and it holds up quite fine. So once over high, once over low, hold it with your thumb and forefinger, and you've got this little V at the bottom, down through there, and just follow the line going in and parallel it going out. So it's a very quick knot to tie. For the smaller lines, I've been using a 2-penny knot, which is twice over high and back down below, same as before. Thumb and forefinger holding it down through the V, and either straight out through and close it up, or a wrap. The wrap will you'll end up with this tail end being more in line and standing straight in line with the incoming line, and that's important for my anodes not to be interfered with, because no contact, no voltage. That's one of the downsides of the Palomar knot, is the tail end tends to stick out a little bit. The new knot that I use and compare to the Palomar knot, for lack of a better name, is I call it a 4-penny knot. And it's basically the same as a 2-penny. You start with 2 over high, and instead of tucking it underneath on the back side, you actually just go right through the eye of whatever you're tying it to. And then once, twice, call it 2.5, and parallel the incoming line. And I did some strength tests on this knot, and I use two different brands of 30-pound test line. Digital meter, you know, one the Palomar knot on one end and the 4-penny knot on the other. And out of 15 tests, the 4-penny knot won 8 out of the 15 times, so close enough to call them equally strong. I also tried it on my 10-pound trout line, my Maxima, and the Palomar knot barely won the first two tests. The meter was up to 13 pounds, and the third test, the fishing line actually broke in between the knots, so it was a dead even there. So try it on your own lines. It might vary a little bit. I also tried it on braid, and it slipped a little bit, so if you're looking at using the 4-penny knot on your braid, don't bother. Just stick with the Palomar knot for that. That's the best one. For my leader line, I've switched over to Berkley Pro Spec line. And I'll just quickly tie the 4-penny knot here. 2 over high, pass through the eye, once, twice, and a half, paralleling the incoming line. Lubricate, close it down, and that line's going nowhere. That knot is cinched. That's the beauty about these, is there is no slipping. Once they're locked in, they're locked in. Nice thing about this Berkley Pro Spec line, especially if guys are using braid nowadays, is that there's really no cushion to the braid. This line is over a year old now. It's 30-pound test. Look how much spring is in that line. I could almost make a slingshot out of that stuff. And even though it might not test for a breaking strength as well as the Maxima does, I kind of like that trade-off. The Maxima is a little bit too stiff for my liking. So I hope you've enjoyed this little clip. Perhaps you'll end up with an extra fish in the boat. Anybody interested in looking at any of my Voltage Tune products, go to my website, www.lurecharge.com. Any comments or questions, my email is alan@lurecharge.com. I've convinced quite a few guys to get away from treble hooks and go to a single, and most of them seem to like it. They don't feel that they've lost any fish by doing it, and it's way more fish friendly. For pinching the barbs on my stainless hooks, these barbs are soft enough that they normally don't break, and you can actually leave a nice little bump under there for holding fish. Our sports fishing seems to be declining. It's up to us to maintain this resource, so any chance you get to let a fish get to the spawning grounds, please do so. Thanks for watching, and be safe out there.